With this, I quickly leave the stage to Mr. Paretra and his team. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeevan, for the nice, warm introduction. I would like to thank IBEX India for inviting all of us to participate in this fireside chat, which is titled The Digital Agenda 2021 and Beyond, Progressing Towards the Future. I also would like to welcome our two panelists, Atri Chakrabarti, COO of India First Life Insurance Company. Welcome, Atri. Good to have you on the chat today.
Thanks, Brian. Pleasure here, and good afternoon to everyone.
Yeah, so Atri will be speaking primarily from the insurance industry point of view and giving us some perspectives on that industry. I also want to welcome Mr. Ashish Ahuja, the COO of Fino Payments Bank. Welcome, Ashish. Lovely to have you today.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's an absolute pleasure being here, and good afternoon. Look forward to the conversation.
Great. So there is no doubt that digital will play a major role in the digital economy as India moves towards its objective of becoming a $5 trillion economy by 2025. Digitalization is set to play a major role in driving revenue, productivity, and innovation. To achieve that, our workforce has to acquire new digital skills, and businesses will need to digitalize their processes and embrace disruptive technologies. The BFSI, banking, financial services, and insurance industry is all geared up for a radical transformation. The pandemic has accelerated the pace of change as we move towards contactless banking. Today, we are more likely to click on links, exchange OTPs, and use apps or websites rather than go to a branch and fill up forms like in the old days. We are witnessing pioneering trends in banking and finance, from omni-channel banking to AI and blockchain-powered financial services. That focus on revolutionizing the BFSI processes by placing customers at the heart of their present and future strategies. And then there is technology that is enabling all these big shifts: robotic process automation, blockchain, AI, ML, big data, analytics, etc. But at the heart of all of this, we are going to be needing new digital skills to support this digital transformation. So in this fireside chat, we're going to talk about digital in the context of skills, process, and automation, and of course, technology. How do we prepare for this huge transformation and the future of banking as we progress towards the future? So our dialogue will also include customers, innovative banking services, and products. And I look forward to an insightful discussion from our two very experienced panelists. So let's talk about people and skills first. What are the types of skills that the workforce needs to acquire to drive and support digital transformation? Apart from digital skills, we can also talk about soft skills, technical skills, and other skills that may not be core to the banking and insurance industry. So my first question to both of you is, what are the type of skills that our workforce is going to need in the next 1 or 2 years? So who would like to go first? Atri or Ashish?
Yeah.
Atri? Okay.
So, Brian, thank you. I think what we're looking at is agility. That I think is one of the skill sets that we want all new employees or existing employees to have. So agility is extremely important in this day and age, and that's something that we look at. The other thing that we are looking at is the techno-functional expertise. So it's the domain that you bring, whether today it's life insurance or general insurance, and within life insurance there could be areas of domain. But you should have an exposure to technology along with that domain, and that is something which we look forward to anyone who's joining the organization. What we also look forward to is if a person has diverse experience, which means that he has worked in an organization but has been exposed two different areas, and just not one area, and where he's been part of projects, change management, because that makes him more agile with the willingness to learn new things. So, I mean, these are some of the skill sets that we are looking at when we are looking at hiring people.
Yes, so we have spoken about agility, techno-functionality, that is technology plus domain knowledge, and diverse expertise. That is what you're saying would be the three core things that are required. Okay, let's have your views, Mr. Ahuja. What do you think would be the core skills that our modern day workforce would require to support digital transformation?
So, Brian, the way we look at it is that I would say you need to first look at your business model, define your customer, and then in context of the customer base, define the digital journeys that the customer needs to travel, or how do you want to assist that journey. Basis that is the output that would come out is how you want to build the structure around that. In a model like Fino Payment Bank, where we have a very asset-light model, and we have we have a number of pan-India presence of merchants who work as franchisees or customer service points for us. It becomes extremely important for us that it is not only the employee base that we look at to be thinking digital first, it is also the merchant or the person representing the bank on behalf of the bank and servicing the customer needs to be digitally savvy. Now, this is not some complex savviness, right? It is about navigating through easy and intuitive applications, and which is what we've tried to do within the organizations by taking away the complexity of a core banking system at the back end and not exposing that to either our front-end branches or to the large number of merchant base that we have, CSPs across the country that we have. We build over 700-800 APIs, where the very intuitive, easy to understand mobile application and web interface from where the person can transact. Simplicity is at the core of any transaction that you're trying to do, especially for the Bharat of India. And that's where we thrive at. And hence, back-end teams need to be aligned to the fact that rather than making complex processes, simplify it down, break it down with something that can be easily understood by a person without, I would say, training. If it is intuitive enough, that is where the core comes in. So hence, your skilling happening in your technology, in your process teams, in your product teams, bases the fact of your customer base, where you need to bring in simplified solutions which are intuitive and easy to understand. Back to you, Brian.
So in other words, it's not just about scaling your internal workforce. You also have to think about skilling partners, third-party vendors, merchants, the whole ecosystem, right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely correct, because in an environmental car, which is very widespread and dissipated, we have to take the entire ecosystem, including the customer, and I'll keep my comments on the customer because there are some questions later on.
Yeah.
And,
so we'll talk about we'll talk about the customer a little later, but it's very interesting to note some of the initiatives that you mentioned that your company, your organization has taken, walking the extra mile to also train the merchants in digital skills. That is fantastic initiative, and maybe you could be a role model for other organizations as well in your industry. So coming back to you, Mr. Chakrabarti, can you tell us what you have done in your company to reskill and maybe even helping the ecosystem a bit? Now, this is within the insurance industry, of course. Yeah.
So one of the things that we are doing, and things are changing very fast. This financial year obviously comes to an end within a month. But in the next financial year, one of the areas where we would want all our employees to go through training interventions would be in the area of artificial intelligence. I mean, I won't say all, but many people, because they need to understand how that is changing processes, how artificial intelligence is going to change our lives. So that is one area where I think there's going to be training interventions. The second is in terms of design thinking, in terms of change management, program management, because all the processes that today, which we had, and as you are aware that insurance was an industry which was heavily paper driven, and we digitized to a very great extent. So unless the entire employees as well as the agency team, the bank partners who do our business, they are not able to see through the changes, it's going to be a very difficult journey to get digital transformation through. So these are some of the programs, as I mentioned, knowing how artificial intelligence is going to change our lives, how design thinking, change management is going to make difference to our lives is what we're planning for the next year. Of course, our focus on soft skills, on customer experience, that remains. But these are more from the digital skilling perspective.
Yeah, thank you. And a follow-up question for you, Mr. Chakrabarty. Insurance is also a highly regulated industry, with regulators like SEBI and so on. So the question here is, how has the regulator, what are the kind of support that you've received from the regulator? What is the understanding from the regulator that you have had to move so fast in little time and transform? What kind of changes have the regulator made to accommodate this fast-paced change and fast-paced reskilling? Because in the last 12 months, we have had to move at a pace like never before, right? So what are you seeing from the regulator in terms of the support?
So we are regulated by IRDAI, the Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India, primarily, and of course there are other bodies as well. And the regulator has been not only supportive, I think they've got a vision to look at how digital processes is going to be the norm in the future. So, with COVID coming in, we've seen that they have supported us in terms of looking at regulations which look at electronic policy dispatch. Okay, so today there is, if you get a customer consent, we are okay to have electronic policy which is to be dispatched to the customer, and the physical document, which was the norm, was changed. So similarly, there was innovation-related circular sandbox innovation, which they've come out with circulars which look at innovation, which look at how do we move to digital processes, and they've been supportive. In many instances, the life insurance industry, through the Life Insurance Council, have gone back and we've presented what we wanted, and they've been supportive in terms of the entire digital journey.
Yeah, and Ashish, what are you seeing in your industry and your regulator? Can you add to that, please?
Sure. So I will let me try and answer that in two forms. One is in terms of the context of the business model that Fino Payment Bank has. So it is about, I won't say it's about reskilling. It is about, the model that we follow is where the merchant or the CSP is the banker in that particular village, in that particular tehsil, in that particular district. So, it's a matter of honor that that person is digitally savvy and able to serve a cause larger than just earning a livelihood, because he or she becomes the touch point of banking at the grassroots level. To do that, all processes and all reskilling at the back end or skilling at the back end is aimed at empowering that person at the front end. We have invested a lot in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of back end processes and the business analytics part of it, where we try and bring out the next best sales process or the next best product from a customer's perspective as a pop-up to our merchants, as an anecdotal example, so that it becomes more and more simplified for the person. We try and work on derivatives to say, we derive things to say surrogates, like if the bill payment that the customer is making is of 2,000 rupees, which means that the salary level should be of an X amount, which means that could you put him in insurance? Could you tell him what is the next page? Could there be an FD? So So, these are the kind of things that we've invested in terms of reskilling or ensuring that the services at the front end are more and more refined. Coming to the regulator side of it, I would say you can see big steps being taken by the Reserve Bank of India. You already have a huge digital policy issued in the last a month or so in terms of digital ombudsmans coming up. So the onus of an entire digital transformation is not only on the customer, it is on the bank or the service provider to ensure that it is safe and secure, which to my mind is an underlying agenda that we follow when we are offering servicing, especially for the Bharat of India. Because for them, banking is not about big sums of money. It is about safely and securely keeping small amounts of money which is kept away for a rainy day. And hence, I think these steps being taken by the Reserve Bank of India push all the entire industry towards making it much more secure and coming out with products which are simpler and security and safety right on top. Back to you, Brian.
Yeah, so this kind of initiatives by regulators also place a lot of confidence within both the customer and also the banker and the merchants and the entire ecosystem. So these are some fantastic initiatives, a lot of understanding there by the regulator. Coming back to the skilling question, another skilling question for you both. I was reading somewhere last night in one of the newspapers that companies are also going to the extent of hiring people who are not, do not have those core domain skills. Like they may be non-banking, non-insurance kind of people. For other kind of skills like communication skills or media skills, or there are other skills, collaboration skills that are required, soft skills. Is this also happening in your banking and insurance industries? Non-core, hiring people with non-core, non-domain kind of skills.
Yes, I mean, that has always been there. I mean, we do recruit people who are from a sales and distribution perspective. It could be agnostic to industry in areas, and there are certain functions where we do recruit people who come from different industries as well. I mean, it could be the HR function, the finance function. In terms of technology and operations, these are areas where we would look at people from the financial services sector, but there are instances where we are looking at people who come with the digital mindset and where we are looking at people from other industries as well.
Yeah, Ashish, would you like to add anything to that?
So the way I'd like to put it across is that one, from a banking perspective, I think as long as you're in sales from a retail perspective, you can look at any industry. As long as the person is from a sales background, it is always good to bring in different perspectives because, and where you're running large distribution setups like we run, you need people from varied industries where a large distributor or dissipated models are run. So one is that aspect. Secondly, I think standard functions. You require some special skill set, whether it be finance and HR, which is separate. But from a core perspective, you require people from different industries because retail, finally, at the end of the day, is the transaction, is the moment of truth. If it goes through, you've done it for the day. If it doesn't, that day is gone. So you need people from different industries, different skill sets, and more from a retail mindset. In case the model demands it, and especially in models like ours, where we have it's a transaction-based banking model. Second aspect is that we take a lot of pride in the fact that we create bankers at grassroots levels, and these bankers are people. And if I was to put it in, that the customer will come and say, "मुझे आप 2 kg आलू, 2 kg प्याज और एक 50 रुपए की FD दे दीजिए." So this is the kind of person that we are skilling and taking right down to the grassroots level. It could be a kirana store, it could be a mobile store, it could be a small repair shop, it could be a cycle shop, it could be a chemist, right? It could be the neighborhood tailor. So this is the diversity to which our bankers, the bankers are there at the grassroots level which are the business correspondent or CSPs as we call them. And hence, all skilling for them from the back end is to keep in mind that we use a lot of digital, we use a lot of social media to communicate in the language they understand through easy to understand videos and GIFs to keep training them and to keep reskilling them. Back to you, Brian.
So moving now from skills and people, moving on to processes. As we move to a contactless banking, the industry is also offering new types of services to customers, increasingly driven by mobile banking apps. So there's more automation coming in now, and the traditional processes need to be overhauled and transformed for digital banking. And we need to do all this very quickly, maybe in a few days or a few months. So the question that I want to ask here to both of you is that you both have been at the forefront of transformation in your respective organizations. Can you please share your experiences about what happened last year, especially as we got into the pandemic? What were the challenges encountered in transforming the processes, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Okay, so I think the biggest challenge is that of the mindset. I think it's a cultural mindset. So today we are work from home enabled, and that is pretty much true for all organizations. I mean, today I think across industries, people are working from home. So the challenge was in terms of not the capability or the enablement by technology, but in making first us believe and then making everyone within the ecosystem believe that this is possible and we can deliver the same customer experience, the same support to business functions working from home. So I think we took steps initially we looked at how customer impact is reduced. So our call center capabilities where we talk to customers, how we ensured that people could work from home, we got that enabled, technology helped us on that. And then looked at how we can improve the self-service capabilities for customers so that whether the customer is getting onboarded, whether the customer's policy is getting serviced, whether customers coming on paying renewals, or whether even claims are getting paid. At every stage, the customer experience is not diluted. And I think that journey we took in a phased manner. I think now that we are into this for almost a year now, I think the insurance industry has picked up. I think this year we would there was initial thoughts of degrowth. Quarter one of this financial year, we saw degrowth, but I think the life insurance industry, even the general insurance industry has picked up from that. So to answer your question, Brian, I think we got the technology enablement at every stage of the customer journey. I mean, for us in insurance, whether it's customer onboarding, so sales and then onboarding the customer, then servicing the customer, the renewals paid by customer, and to the claims, whether it's a death claim or a maturity claim. At every stage, now we've got the journey mapped out, and I think that it has made a change in our mindset. I think today work from home has become a reality, and it will stay. I mean, COVID notwithstanding.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. Ashish, would you like to share your story about what happened last year and how did you overcome all the challenges? You had to do that in a very short time. So can you share your experiences?
I think the fact that we're just a 3-year-old organization at the bank helped us in one respect, that we were, the basic structure of the bank was digital. All processes from day one have been constructed digitally from a customer standpoint. In fact, we call ourselves a phygital model, where the access point for the customer is physical, but any process for the customer is 100% digital without with zero requirement of any paperwork in any of the processes. So, that is one side of this thing. But did COVID face, bring about some challenges? Surely. The fact that we think digital first helped us in that. But as a response, I'd like to put it into two aspects. One was taking your employee base with you. It was a time of uncertainty. There was a lot of apprehension because it is human to be apprehensive in such a time. And human beings are made to stay in connect with each other, which was suddenly broken because you had to do a work from home transformation, that too at 100% basis. So we on the company's internal aspects, we drove a lot of communication right down from HR and all the HODs driving communication along with these communication tools like Zoom and what we are on right now, WebEx and stuff like that being available. A lot of VCs were organized to give comfort to the employee base that the company stands by you and don't worry, we will sail through this to the end. And touch wood, internally we coined COVID within the first month or so as creating opportunities in virus infected days from a business standpoint and drove business in that direction. So that is one side of it. Second is the communication tools that we adopted for our merchant base, which is the service point for our customers, is through bringing our call center totally in-house in a very, very quick time frame, about 20 to 30 days, because we had outsourced this earlier and naturally the company had problems and challenges in doing that. So we took it upon internally, and we invested in some communication tools to take out mass communication to merchants and customers to keep them on page for any changes that we were implementing or we were doing, or new regulations or rules that we were setting up, so that there were no surprises in store either on the employee side or the merchant side or a product being rolled out. So that's on the entire ecosystem had to be taken around, because when you're running a very, very deep rooted model where you are there present in over 95% of the pin codes in the country, communication becomes the key, and that's where we very, very strongly invested in.
Thank you. So that's a good lead into the next question, which is about customers. As you mentioned, Ashish, communication becomes the key. When an organization makes all these changes and so many changes in a short time, it's really important to communicate with customers. So the question here is, how did the customers react to all these changes, these sudden changes, and how did you take them along with you on this journey, especially with your communication strategies? And what was the kind of reaction you got from these customers?
So I would, like to quote an example. Now, Fino Payment Bank in its model is one of the largest service providers on micro ATM and APS side. And as you're aware, a lot of government funds have been dedicated over the last 8 to 10 months, where subsidies were given to a segment of population, which is our core customer base. So, the entire ecosystem or the entire technology, the fact that customers who were used to going to branches have now taken BC models or merchants who are bankers at the grassroots level as their nearest touch points and have accepted them as bankers by virtue of the volume of transactions, which have grown by about 150 to 200% in some of our product lines, right? Goes to show that customers' acceptability will always be there, and it's proven now, based on the fact that they have trust in the digital transformation that you have put into your processes. As long as the transactions do drop, failure rates are low, and there is a transparent way of communicating to customers, we've seen customers' adaptability to be very, very fast. And I'm talking of tier 5, 4, 5, 6 of the country. I'm not talking of 100% digitally savvy customers. Even if there are issues and we were able to transparently communicate to the customer that this will take maybe a day to resolve or maybe an hour to resolve, we found empathy coming in from customers. And as long as there were transparent communication, the empathy from the customer side was equally there. Back to you, Brian.
So communication is the key that keeps all this together, and it's really important to communication. What about the insurance industry, sir? What did you do there? What are you seeing from the insurance customers?
So I think, the industry, and as you mentioned, as Ashish mentioned, I think communication, taking employees along is something which was very important. And I think the industry did that. So the overall view is that the insurance industry moved into the digital mode very, very quickly. Okay, for us as an organization, we had in fact done some business continuity planning even before the lockdown was set. So our people were trained, they were enabled to take calls, I mean, specifically contact center, even before the lockdown was announced, and they had the capability of working from home. So from a customer experience perspective, the only challenge or the glitch initially was that if the accessibility was 100%, that would have come down to 90% because the technology glitches prevented them from connecting to us. But in terms of our customer onboarding process, we've always been a digital company. Even today, even 100% of all our customers are onboarded through a digital process. So the physical proposal form, it's not even 1%. So there was no impact. The servicing claims, we ensured that we were able to service customers. One of the very interesting things that we've seen is that how circumstances change customer behavior. The digital channel, or digital means of intimating death claims, that's increased to more than 70% in this financial year. So for individual life death claims, either through email or through our WhatsApp or through our customer portal, more than 70% of death claims have come through these channels. Whereas this, even last year, was in the range of about 40%. So you would imagine that the intimation of something as grim as a death claim is typically a manual, paper-driven process. However, that also shifted to the digital way. So I think for us, the transition was seamless. Customers did not realize that COVID has happened, and as a result of which India First, there's been any issue. I think overall, when I talk about India First, I think the insurance industry per se seamlessly moved to the digital mindset. Different companies are at different stages of digital transformation. So some of them are more evolved than the others. But I think overall, I think customers have not suffered as a result of this.
Yes, thank you. So they say that whenever there is a setback, there is always opportunity and there is a silver lining, and we have also an opportunity to announce new products, new services, like you just told us, Mr. Chakrabarti, about the death claims. So what I would like you to continue with that answer, with that response, Mr. Chakrabarti. What were the new innovative products, services that you introduced in the last 1 year, purely digital, and because of this new opportunity?
We seized the opportunity on day one. So we launched something called Ghar Baithe Insurance. And, insurance as a product has always been a push product, but with COVID, with general awareness increasing, people have looked at life insurance and health insurance favorably. That's obviously been one of the impacts of COVID. People are now more aware that they need to have coverage and security.
So just to interrupt here, do you have something like a COVID-19 kind of insurance product?
We did. We did. We had a short-term cover which we launched, and the regulator also asked companies to launch. So we launched a product which had a COVID cover as well. And we have ensured that for term insurance, we had a product launch where we could get the entire process done digitally, and customers could, online come and get their term insurance policy issued. So there were two aspects which we've seen with COVID. initially. One, that there was heightened interest in risk coverage, so term products. The second thing has been that when the market volatility was at its peak, there was an interest for products with guaranteed returns. Okay, so I think those are areas where the industry has looked at and seized the opportunity. I mean, these opportunities are there for a period of time, and then all the products, obviously customers would need all products. So I think we did Ghar Baithe Insurance. We were able to sell specifically in Q1 of this financial year, which was where everything was shut down. We sold a lot of term policies. We called it e-term because it was sold online, and we provided coverage to customers.
Thank you for sharing. So a lot of opportunities, new products, innovation. We'll come to innovation a little later because we need to keep the innovation going if we want to stay in the game. So now a question for Ashish. Ashish, what were some of the new products and services launched over the last 12 months from Fino Payments Bank?
So we looked at it in two aspects. One, from a launch of new products, we said that COVID has created an opportunity or accentuated the fact that for no-touch processes, and hence the recently launched circular by Reserve Bank of India on video KYC was something we latched onto, and we were remotely have been onboarding our merchants. There is a remote onboarding through video KYC of our merchant, which is typically now is touching about 15 to 20% of the number of merchants or CSPs onboarded on a monthly basis, which is one of those things. And we went live with Iris, which is rather than putting your fingerprint for a AEPS authentication transaction, we scan the retina to authenticate the person for a transaction. That's the other piece that we've done. Thirdly, like Atri mentioned, we've also, we have insurance partners, we work with them, and we came out with a very low cost COVID Shield cover, which was, specific to that time, and launched an insurance product in that thing along with naturally by our insurance partners. We are the distributors in that respect. And we made changes in some of our CASA products to give higher transaction limits or higher transaction throughput limits to our customers to ease the situation. So these are four, data points in terms of exactly what we did. But along with that, I would say largely one of the bigger things that we were trying to do was that we segregated or segmented our merchant points, and we looked at the age profile and the usage of social media through backend tools and used them as change agents to drive customers to become more towards self-service and self-reliance and move to a mobile banking application, so that in the eventuality they can sit at home and do the transaction rather than coming to the assisted point, which is right there in their neighborhood. Back to you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Ashish. And now we move on to technology, agility, and innovation. And I don't want to delve too much on the technology part. Maybe we can just call out what are the core technologies that are enabling all this innovation and all these products and services that you both have spoken about.
So I'll
yes, Mr. Chakrabarty, you can go for it. Yes.
So the way I look at it, and I look at what is the business objective, and then how technology can help us in enabling this. So one of the things that we're looking at, we've been a company which has been growing at a very high rate of growth for the last 5 years. Of course, COVID. For this year, there will be a little slowing down of growth. So the first thing that we need to look at is how do we support this business growth? So if we are at X today, and if we were to become 2X in 3 years or 4 years, how do we build scale? So how does technology help us onboarding more customers, make that process seamless? How do we service more customers with technology? Because today, if we have, say, 1 million customers, and it becomes 2 million in 3 years or lesser than that, how do we support that? So I think a lot of the technology surrounding cloud, are attuned to looking at how do we build scale. The second part of it is how do we improve customer experience? And this is the true differentiator in a product like insurance. So, and here I think everyone is moving towards personalization. So how do I provide personalized product? How do I provide personalized experience? In fact, today we are trying to look at even the communication that we send needs to be customized. It needs to differ depending upon the customer persona. So if he is an urban customer, is a rural customer, is an aged customer, is a younger customer, how do you personalize the communication? Then there are customers who are saying the frequency of communication. I don't want so many communication. It's the content, the frequency. Customers are giving us insights on the mode of communication. Someone wants to be communicated through email, some want physical letters, physical communication, some want WhatsApp, some don't want SMS. So clearly personalization. And here I think analytics, artificial intelligence, these are the technologies that we are looking at on improving customer experience. And of course, when we talk of customer experience, it's not only personalization, but in terms of looking at service guarantees. So one of the things that we did also during COVID, and I didn't mention it, it's not about the product, but we said that we will settle your claims in 1 day for certain eligible claims, death claims. Okay, so now that's a big customer wow. Of course, we defined what is eligible claims and we told customers 1 day death claims. So personalization and building service guarantees is how it will help us in customer experience. The third thing that we're looking at is obviously operational efficiency, cost optimization, and which is where automation helps us. So today it is the world of conversational AI, bots, robotic process automation. So there are various processes which we have taken, which were manual in nature, and we have utilized bot. And I mean, it is a continuous process and journey where we are looking at operational efficiency being improved as well as the costs being optimized. The last area where I think the technologies are going to play a big role in the financial services sector is on risk management. And of course, risk management is a wide field. So whether you have reputation risk, you have investment risk, you have operational risk, various risks. But from the perspective of say a life insurance industry today, and I look at how do I cap the risk of someone wanting to commit a fraud at the onboarding stage? How do I prevent a fraudulent claim, a genuine claim not being paid? So these are the areas where analytics, AI is going to play a key role. In some of these areas, we are going to build capabilities ourselves with applications. In certain areas, there are insurtechs who are providing a lot of capability which will just integrate. So I think these are some of the technologies. I talked about AI, I talked about bots, I talked about cloud, blockchain, and as of now, we've not seen too many use cases in the industry, but there is an opportunity. But we will look out for that. So these I think, are some of the areas which we would look at in life insurance. IoT clearly has a lot of significance in the general insurance industry with telematics for motor and for health, wellness as a theme. So these are some of the areas where there will be investments and changes.
Yeah, thank you. So Ashish, would you like to share your viewpoints on core technologies for enabling this innovation?
So I think, being a mobile first company, we are, the basic platform on which we deliver customer services from a digital perspective is Android. Like I said, video KYC and the BI tools run on Python. So that's more like a factual data point. But the fact is, what we invested in, it's on the bot side, it's on RPA, because as the banking industry, whatever process at the back end is routine and mundane can actually be automated today through RPA processes. And we've invested very heavily into that to reduce costs at the back end and to ensure that tax for any back end processes are improved. Error rates go down, right? Second aspect is from a communication standpoint, we've invested in bots in regional languages to reach out to our merchants, to reach out to our customers. We've built self-service and reach out to a communication platform within our portals so that the merchant or the customer can reach out through these self-serve tools and we can close those queries or those issues at a much faster rate, which brings up much more transparency, brings out much more stability, into the model in that sense. If I look at transformation within the teams, anecdotally speaking, I keep telling my tech team, I said, last year, 2019 EOD, which is my year-end closing, probably was went into the wee hours of the morning. 23rd March was the lockdown, and the year-end closing, 3 o'clock from a work from home culture perspective, everything was done, dusted, and we closed the bank. In this COVID period, you've gone through RTGS has gone 24/7. The entire NEFT system has gone through an upgrade, right? And all these are huge transformations which the teams have delivered doing a work from home. So I think as much as management has reposed faith in employees to do work from home, I think employees have paid back in equal measure, if not more, by delivering and realizing that this is now a part of life. Tomorrow, even through post-COVID, I think companies are going to look at work from home as a culture, maybe 30, 40, 50%, whatever is their culture internally as per their DNA. But this is something which has opened up a great new opportunity for us from a cost saving and from a productivity perspective, if you ask me.
Thank you. So we have spoken about delivering in a very short period of time. We have spoken about innovation and we have spoken about scale. But now, how do you keep this going? Consistent innovation is very essential for survival today. What are the steps you are taking in your respective organizations to ensure consistent innovation? Mr. Chakrabarty, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I think, it's about, again, as I said, it's about a mindset. So innovation should not just be one team or one small team or one person, but clearly having that mindset would help in organizations achieve much. So I think our focus has been in looking at evaluating technologies which are upcoming, where we believe in doing experimentation. So we want to do quick POCs where we experiment. If it succeeds, great. If it fails, then we stop that and just move ahead. So I think on innovation, these are the two things that I kind of would like to look at. One, the mindset where we always look at reimagining the customer journey. Okay, so what is true today in future will change. So we should have that mindset to keep thinking through that. And secondly, whenever there is any new technology or a new fintech, insurtech, which is coming up with a capability, experiment it very quickly, get the results, and if it works for you, move ahead. If it doesn't, just move on to the next experiment. So I think these are the two things that I would say is what we're looking at in the organization.
Yeah, Mr. Ahuja, would you like to add to that, please?
So in my sense, if you look at it, I would say innovation, firstly, the journey. Secondly, you can look at it in two aspects. One, there could be a culture where you build specific teams and say, this would be the innovation team. Second is that if as a leadership team, you believe innovation is the key, drive that message down to the core, and you will see your teams which are on the product, process, operations, technology, will bring in innovative measures on their own as long as you drive it as a culture and not as a one-off event to say, this is innovation week and this is innovation month. So it needs to be driven at the culture. Secondly, believe in partnerships. Don't try and do everything on your own. There are enough and more fintechs today, thankfully, in India, and we are thriving on that, where you will find people doing wonderful work which is aligned to your industry. Pick up small partners, work with them rather than trying to build something of your own. You'll be much faster off the block. You learn much more, and you will give rise to another company which would, by partnering with a bigger organization. Most importantly, please be ready to fail. Because innovation, change in processes, faster, agile are good big words. But whenever you implement something new, robotic process automation, bots, these are things which take some time. There are failures. Please give a pat on the back or incentivize failure, I would say, as a leadership team, so that people know that the message is not a one-off message, but it is consistency, and innovation is a part of our DNA. By penalizing innovation or failure in innovation, you will make it into one of these things. So that's the way I would look at it.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question for you, Mr. Ahuja. You mentioned agility to being agile. Now, time is not on our side, and when in these times we have to move really fast. And for a larger organization, it becomes a little difficult to be agile because you're so large, you have so many, or such a wide organization. Agility can indeed be a challenge for a big organization. You may agree or disagree with me on this, but if that's a problem you encountered or that's a big challenge, what is your strategy for being agile and improving time to market?
So if you ask me, what we follow internally is that please break up your projects into large scale projects which will have impacts 6 months, 3 months, 9 months down the line, and a here and now kind of a conversation. Your coding team, your code development team needs to be aligned to the fact that coding needs to be step up, break it into small pieces rather than trying to go live with a big bang. I would agree with Atri when he says that try out small pilots in small locations. If it succeeds, take it forward, because anything that fails should not have a larger impact. And your backend coding needs to be aligned to the agile form and step up coding conversations, so that you don't look at one project as a big mammoth and it kind of bogs you down. Break it into phases, take it from there. For me, I think that is something which is worked right through and through, because any step up or project broken into smaller pieces always delivers. Anything you go with a big bang approach, at the end you realize times have moved forward, times have changed, and the relevance of that large project somewhere doesn't deliver what it was expected to deliver.
So you're saying break it up into baby steps, don't take a big bang approach, and then your coding should have a step up approach as well. Yeah, Mr. Chakrabarti, can you add to that, please? If you like, I can repeat I can repeat the question, or have you understood the question?
Yeah, I've understood, and I was hearing Ashish, and I agree with him that I think the approach that we have here is that all the projects that or the program of work that we need to do, or we kind of break it up into projects which have a long-term, and again, long-term definition has also changed because, things keep changing so very fast. So I think the program management of projects into what we need to do immediately in the medium term, which I define now as 6 months, and something which we can see the impact of it in 8 to 9 months. I mean, anything beyond 1 year, things may change. So I think the way to look at all these projects and delivery is something that will make us agile. The other thing which we now have started believing is seriously looking at customer feedback and customer insights. Okay, so today we have a way by which we are getting real-time customer feedback on when they transact with us. It's like a real-time dashboard. So as soon as a customer is and we use the Net Promoter Score methodology, customers are detractor, it kind of immediately comes up that this customer has given us feedback. He interacted with us on this touch point. He has this product, he was sourced through this channel, and he's based out of this location. And some of this feedback is so rich in terms of where we are failing to deliver. I think those insights and real-time feedback is what we are giving more importance for the here and now, as Ashish mentioned. So if customers are saying your products are not giving you a good return, if today our maturity payment is delayed, a renewal receipt has got delayed, please look into that immediately and resolve it. Okay, so what I would say is that industries, companies should look at building a listening post where the feedback is coming real time. Look at that, make that feedback into a project which needs to be delivered in the next, 30 days, 60 days, because customers are giving you real time feedback. So I think these are the ways by which we can be agile. I mean, your question was, how do we remain agile as we keep growing? I think nothing better than listening to customers and getting customer insights.
Okay, thank you. And this brings me to the final question for our interesting fireside chat this afternoon. And the question ties back to the theme of the discussion, which is the Digital Agenda 2021 and beyond, progressing towards the future. So my final question to both of you is, how do you see banking and insurance in a post-pandemic world? And how are you preparing for this 2021 and beyond? Yeah, Ashish, would you like to go first, please?
Sure. So my sense, last year or the last 2 years, we've been on top of the meaty charts in terms of digitization. Like I said, one needs to define what is digital journeys for the organization and its customers. Speaking in terms of Innovation Bank and its or similar models, I would say the merchant is, or the service point, customer service point, is right in the center. As long as you know who you're keeping in the center of your journey, you know what you're going to go and achieve. So for me, it's the merchant and the customer, because that's where the customer is getting serviced in our model. Having said that, my sense is that video or remote monitoring of processes is going to be a big journey which is going to be traveled, and more use cases are going to get developed onto that. Second aspect is, as you go more and more deeper in digital journeys and you take a customer through a digital journey, the investment onto the risk aspects being built into the product design itself will gain much more prominence, because this is a customer which requires to know that there is not only are you giving good service, but you're giving it in a secure manner, and he or she has to be very sure of that transaction. The third aspect is that the AI, or trying to build products by looking at data and customer behavior patterns in terms of one side doesn't fit all, is going to become a norm, and you will have to keep coming out with sachet-based products which suit different segments within the larger segment that you service. And for companies like us, I would say more than innovation and stability is a huge key which we have to deliver to the customer. Me and you go to an ATM today and a transaction fails, we don't worry about it, because we know that 5,000 or 10,000 rupee withdrawal will get reversed tomorrow. This customer, when he comes to my merchant point and a transaction fails, there is it's an unacceptable situation. So I don't have that liberty, and hence all processes need to be built for stability along with scale. Back to you, Brian. You're on mute, Brian.
Yeah, Mr. Chakrabarti, how do you see the future of insurance, and how are you preparing for that?
Yeah, so I think Ashish mentioned a couple of things, which is, I think, true for us as well. I think products need to be bit-sized. It should be simplified. I think attachment products, I mean, this is true more for GI, but even in life insurance, we can we will see, this as a trend going forward. So innovative products, simplified products, I think is something that we will see in the future. I think the ease of onboarding, today, whether we are a bank assurance driven company, whether it's an agent driven company, or whether we are an online driven organization, I think the ease of onboarding of customers is going to be most crucial. Okay, so whichever distribution force works, they should be able to onboard customers easily. I've already talked about personalization. I think today customers, and I think Ashish also alluded to that, one size fits all. It's not going to happen that way. Okay, so there will be customers who would be wanting products, services which are customized, personalized for them, and I think that personalization is the future, and which we will work in different shape and form. And the last thing which I want to keep saying, I think real time getting customer feedback and making changes, I think that is going to be the trend in the future. So if you're not listening to your customers, you're not listening to your distributors, then there's something drastically wrong. So I think these are the things, this is the future for the insurance industry.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's a great way to end this conversation.